Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Meyer,
I'm Sara,
and this is a video recap for our second and for our third classes for our May 2020 Blues Dance series for Lindy Groove, our digital online series. This month we're focusing on just teaching you guys a large repertoire of solo movements that you can bring into your blues dancing. We have various themes each week focusing on a different part of the body for isolations and types where the movements are sort of being generated. In week 2, we focused on the middle third. We had some exercises loosening up the middle third, the hips, going forward, back, side to side. And then we taught you 3 patterns. The 3 patterns focused on 3 different types of movements we could be focusing on with our hips and our middle third. The first movement was the C hips, where the hips are creating a C shape. That movement, there's 2 basic components. There's the side to side of the hips, and then there's a level change going deep into our knees and standing upright. And putting those 2 things together, we get hit and hit, and hit and hit, and hit and hit, hit and hit. We can do it on the other side as well. Hit and hit, and hit and hit and hit. The next pattern we focused on were the grinds. Again, largely generated in the middle third, but now we had a movement where we brought our hips up by crunching our abs. We're not pushing off with the ground. It's not generated with our leg. That's the crunch. And then we bring our leg to the side. I often have a feeling like I'm just falling onto that leg. We collect, we crunch, and bring the leg over. Crunch, over, crunch, over. So
in this over, we're focusing on the crunch and then sending our hip to the side. And our leg is underneath us.
So when you're practicing at home, do try to think about that crunch, and it's not just a step to the side. And sometimes it might look a little bit like that, but then that's missing a fundamental component of the movement. And then last, we focused on the mess arounds, where we're bending at the hips, and we can go to side, back, forward, and we often have a little bit of a pulse, but it depends on the context. We can smooth it out.
And our weight is shifting, so when we're forward, our weight is more on the front of our feet, and when it's back, our weight is a little bit more on the back of our foot, and to the side, a little bit more to the side. So we let our weight just naturally shift while we're doing this. And we can go either direction.
And you have a lot of choices, having it a little pulsier, smoother, a little bit of staccato, or nice and soft.
You can do level changes too.
So we had you guys put these in, into music, just did groups of 4 sets of 8s for each of these. You can do that at home. Then in week 3, we focused on the bottom third, focusing on movements that are largely happening with our legs and our feet, but of course there's other things that are involved as well. We had a warm-up activity where we had you practice being very aware of your balance. Balance on the heel, balance on the ball of your foot, and going back and forth between these positions on your foot. Do it with both legs, heel, toe, heel, toe. We also had you practice this movement where we just sort of swivel on a foot. Right, this is not a specific pattern, but getting used to generating rotation in our hips, and that it manifests in pivoting on the ground. But we wanted to ideally keep our torso relatively still during this activity. And we can move on the front of the foot and on the back, both legs. This is, again, not a pattern, but something to practice to get these certain movements in your body. We then...
It's easier to do when you have slippery shoes or when you're on a hard surface, if you're on a sticky surface, you might not want to do it. It might
Yeah.
harm your knees too much.
Yeah, be careful with that. So we're on a hardwood or laminate floor, and we have leather soles. We encourage you to keep it minimize the friction there. Then we showed you guys 4 different patterns in this week. We started with half TikToks, James Brown's, goes by a few different names. This idea where we use that movement of transferring forward to back weight, on our weight on the front and the back of the foot, together with the pivots to pull ourselves to a given direction. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we talked about shaping. You can have a straight leg or do a little swivel with it. And then we have the front leg a little bit bent and propelling ourselves. Okay. Then the next thing we did is the TikToks. This has similar movement in the feet. We have 2 major components. We're going to open, close, just on its own. You can practice this. I'm not paying attention to where my weight is on my foot. So just open, close, together with this pumping motion, similar to camel walks. Pump, so I've got my weight on one toe and the other heel, and then switch. And putting those together, we get out, in, out, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. There's a little bit of a sway with the lower body. Ideally, our torsos do not move. And we talked about how emphasizing the shapes, the lift in the feet is a common aesthetic for this. Then next, we talked about Applejacks. Applejacks, again, similar kinds of motions. Here we're stomping a bug in front of us. So we pivot our hips, our feet. Our torsos are still largely forward. We stomp on that bug that's right in front of us, and we push into the ground and rotate right underneath us, and then we stomp again right underneath us. Stomp, pivot, stomp, pivot, stomp, pivot, stomp, pivot. Notice from the side, the stomp is happening right underneath us, and then we pivot. That the standing leg is straight, and when we bend the front leg. And so there's a transition as we transition which way our leg is on. Which leg our weight is on. We straighten the leg, and we change the weight placement. And then the last one we talked about was the boogie drops. It's a relatively simple pattern. It's touch, touch, drop. Touch, touch, drop. Touch, touch, drop. Touch, touch, drop. And we often have this sense of where our weight is still on that standing leg, but we're prepping into that last step, a touch, touch, drop. But since there's this is a relatively open base on which you can add lots of different shapes and other movements. So we gave you one that we like, the toe heel, that goes toe, heel, drop, toe, heel, drop, toe, heel, drop, toe, heel, drop. But you can add some twisties and a variety of other things in there as well. Right, so we did those 4 things. We looped it up to music. Again, just each one of those, we gave 4 sets of 8 counts. We played for you guys some music from friends of ours, Sweetie and the Toothaches. We encourage you to get their album. You can go practice to their stuff. And I think that's it. So come back next week, and we'll keep building on these, putting them together, and learning some new steps.
All right, see you next time.
Take care, everyone.